Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Saturday. Stand by for disclaimer.
This podcast contains adult themes and language. The views expressed here are our own opinions and experiences. We are not medical professionals.
In this podcast, we discuss our opinions about mental health, sobriety, addiction, and our pursuit of happiness and peace. This is Sober Mind.
This is Sober Mind. Here we go. Oh, good morning, everybody. Man, so professional. You guys hear that custom bumper going in the background?
Custom.
That was handmade, all instruments played by my good friend, James Tyler.
Thank you, James.
Gave the copyright right to me. He knocked this out in like 2-3 minutes. Michelle, can you tell me how everything's sounding? Too loud, too quiet? I got a whole new setup. Long story. Plus, we're going to be streaming in some music, copyright free, from Spotify. Okay, but before we get started, we're going to discuss today's format. Usually, we talk about our drunken escapades, our alcoholism.
Usually we have Patrick here, too.
Yes, usually Patrick is here. So far, so good, Michelle says. Sweet. Patrick is out and about on the weekend, hanging out with some friends. So he's not here. That's just how it's going to be. Sometimes Judy won't be here. Sometimes I won't be here. If I'm not here...
oh, shit's going to go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, you may just have to start pressing buttons.
We don't know how to do any of this stuff.
Okay, but what we're going to do today is change it up a little bit. We're going to start out with a story. It's a funny story of a strange time in my life. So, here we go. Let me fade this out. Man, it's like a professional radio station in here. What do you think, babe?
I think it's awesome.
Okay. So, all right. Way back when I was 15, I was living in Klamath, California. That's where my father was, not Klamath Falls, Oregon, in case you go to look it up. Klamath, California. There's an Indian reservation up there in the Klamath Glen. It's at the mouth of the Klamath River that goes like right to the ocean. You can see the ocean water and the fresh water mixing in together. Pretty amazing area.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, Judy's been there. Anyway, a good friend of mine from the reservation, his name was Thunder. You just cannot get any better than that. That was his name, Thunder. He looked like, what's his name? Ian Asbury from the Cult.
I think that's his name.
Yeah. Anyway, lead singer from the Cult is who it reminded me of. Yes, Michelle. All I see is John. Okay, we're going to keep going. So the story is, I was working at Trees of Mystery. Usually what I would do there is...
Well, describe Trees of Mystery.
Hold on. Turn your mic up a bit. How's that?
Oh, that's better.
Oh, was I low?
You were. I didn't realize it until you just turned it up. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, yeah, whole new setup. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, let me start over. Trees of Mystery up on Highway 101. I think it's probably about 30 miles south of the Oregon border, right there by Crescent City. And
in the midst of the redwoods.
Middle of the redwoods. Beautiful, beautiful area. Anyway, I was a maintenance worker. And one of the funnest things I would do, So Trees of Mystery, it's a bunch of redwood trees, big old sequoias, and some of them are all carved out so you can walk through the tree and there's tunnels.
Or drive through, and there's some big enough to drive through.
Yeah, there's some big enough to drive through. 2 lanes, I think, on one of them.
Oh, I didn't know there was that. I knew you could fit one car through, but I didn't know you could fit 2.
Maybe it is 1. There's trails you can walk through. At the end of the day, guys, it's just a big old tourist trap. There's gravel walkways. So I used to drive a little Bobcat and smooth those out, fill the potholes, paint the hotel room, and do all of that stuff over there. There is a gigantic Paul Bunyan. You guys can look it up on the internet. I was going to show it, but I want everyone to pay attention and listen to this story.
Oh, you forgot Babe.
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
So there's a big old Paul Bunyan. I want to say like 30 feet tall.
Yeah, he's pretty massive.
Yeah. And he's holding an axe. He's got a head that swivels. It's mechanical. And a hand that waves like this. And an eyelid that opens and closes. Important to this story. And then right next to him is Babe the Blue Ox. It's an ox about half the size of Paul Bunyan. The thing is massive. Like half of a school bus in length. It's big.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah. So it's white and 3 or 4 different shades of blue. And it's anatomically correct. It's got a big old gigantic nutsack hanging down.
That have their own color, right?
Yes. So since the balls are at arm's reach, just thousands of people throughout the year, they go and they stand underneath the balls. They get pictures taken because it's funny, I guess. And
it is funny.
It is funny. Anyway, people do a little graffiti all over the nuts all the time. Anyway, when I used to do the painting, I would have to get the blue. I wonder how, there's got to be hundreds of coats on the balls. Anyway, I used to have to go up to the warehouse area and grab the paint. It was funny because that was the most blue paint that we had, and it was literally labeled Babe's Balls Blue. I would take a full can of that, go down there, just paint the balls. I've got to be in hundreds of pictures because people used to laugh. I would see them pointing at me and laughing, whatever. Anyway, so at the gift shop area, there's a PA system. It's got several mics. And remember, this is old. This was back in the 80s. So there's a CCTV. I'm sure it's more advanced now. CCTV camera, closed circuit television, basically a wise cam these days, but not as advanced. And it would point towards the boot area of Paul Bunyan.
Which is where the door is.
Yes. So he's got one leg kind of kicked up in a resting pose, and then the other one goes straight down. And in front of that, that's where the crowd gathers. You go back behind Paul Bunyan. I showed Judy this. She's my witness. I'm not making this shit up. There's a door. It's got a lock on it. You open up the door. There's a straight ladder that goes up. You walk up there. You end up in a tiny little platform. It's about half the size of this room. It's pretty comfortable. And it's a little command center. Not very advanced. It's got a view of the camera also from that CCTV pointing down to the crowd so you can see what's going on. And it's got a microphone and it's got a voice modulator in it. So when you're talking, it lowers your voice down. And like when you're saying, "Hey kids, how's it going?" It comes out of a loudspeaker and then the kids go all crazy in there. They get all excited. There's a guy that used to work up there. Coincidentally, his name was John as well. Nothing to do with the story. He called in sick. Historically, I guess he'd never been ill, but he just couldn't work. So they would have people rotate through and work up in Paul Bunyan, and because it was a thing, it's like the main part of the tourist attraction. When you park there, people see the Paul Bunyan and they go all crazy. So there's not much to it. There's no script. You just basically acknowledge people and, hey, take a picture, or, what's going on, kids, and blah,
Wave
blah,
the
blah.
arm and blink the eye.
Hit the little pneumatic lever and it waves the hand. do it once in a while, hit the other lever, and the one eyelid closes. You can see out of the chest. It's like a screened off area through his chest hair. It's weird. You saw, right? Yeah. And then up on the head, if I were to stand up, you can reach right out of below the eye, right below the whites of his eye. There's a vent there. So anyway, they needed someone to work it. They asked me if I wanted to do it because I had been in some pretty good graces there and doing a good job. My life was in a shambles at that time, though. I was ready to find a new path. That has something to do with the story. As I was telling Judy, this is a funny story, but not necessarily a good one. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll go work up in Paul Bunyan just for a couple hours before this other person came in and was going to do it. I was like, sure. Gave me a quick run through, gave me the key, opened up the lock, went up there, did my thing. Everything was going good for a little bit. You know, it was kind of a quiet day. I think it was during the weekday, earlier in the morning. School bus pulls up and a group of kids comes out, and I did hey kids, how's it going? Wave the hand. You can hear them screaming, cheering. Just wave the hand, blink the eye. Boy, the weather sure is nice out. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. Then it would modulate. So that was that. Hung out for a bit. Hear a knock on the boot. Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. My friend Thunder is there. I go down, open the boot door. Just saying that sounds weird. Open the boot. Thunder, what's up? Hey, man, I want to come hang out with you up in Paul Bunyan. Never been in there. Lived here all my life. I'm like, not a good idea, bro. It's like, dude, come on. I got you a 64-ounce big gulp slushy from 7-Eleven. And I brought a big old bag of weed from the reservation. I'm like, this does really not sound like a good idea. But you know what? Screw it. Let's do this. He came up. We proceeded to smoke the sticky icky from the reservation, and we got super ripped. I overdid it. I lost control of myself. Some of us have all been there. You know what happens. Anyway, I'm just completely zoning out. Another school bus pulls up. Thunder, in the meantime, had been taking advantage of the situation, and oh, that's right. There's a whole part to what Thunder did to this. I forgot to tell you. I told you once before. So anyway, in the midst of our stoniness, school bus pulls up. My mind was just in a completely different place at that time. This all seemed like a good idea, what we did next. You ready? I had about 3/4 of the slushy ready to go. And by the way, we were smoking out of, just out of one of those little pipes with a screen in it. And it's what we did way back in the day. And I imagine the view from the outside looked amazing because there was just smoke coming out of his eye socket, out of his chest, I guess. I don't know. But so as the school bus pulls up, I was like, all right, Thunder, we got to calm down. I got to take care of this. And I went into a different place. As the kids walk up, I stand up, I grab the slushie. Something in me said, John, you need to drop this slushie out of his eyeball. And here's what I did. I got ready. I said, Thunder, watch this. And I reeled back and I hucked the slushie out of Paul Bunyan's eye. And it was going down. I yelled,
look out, kids. I've got pink eye.
Slushie hits like right down at the bottom in the parking lot in front of these kids and just splatters red cherry slushy all over the place. And all you hear is this.
Oh, fuck! Oh, my God, man! What happened to Paul Bunyan's eye? What, is shit coming down on us? Oh, my God!
All right, then Thunder grabs the mic and he's like,
You white people took my land. You came over here and raped my people. You took advantage of us and left us a tiny reservation, you fucks.
And the kids are like, what? I don't even know what that even means.
next. So we're losing our shit, just laughing our asses off. All of a sudden, you hear through the PA speakers, John, to the office. John, to the office ASAP. I was like, well, that's that. I'm losing my job for sure. There's no way to backpedal out of this, so I just did it one more time. Cranked on the eyelid so it's in constant flap mode. Got the hand going, head is rotating, and I was just like,
Peace out, bitches. I quit.
that's it. Thunder laughed so hard he was like throwing up cherry slushy. Left it in the command center of Paul Bunyan. That's that. Okay. Any questions?
Oh my God.
All right, let's get some background music streaming here.
Okay. So the actual topic for today is going to be about anxiety, manic, and depression. Which after that story is kind of hard to delve into, but we'll give it a shot. Okay. Do you have anything you want to say about those three?
I do. Mania, anxiety, and depression, it affects a lot of people. Not necessarily in that order, but they all sort of go hand in hand with each other in different ways. So did you want to read some factoids, like the first couple, or do you want me to do it?
No, I got it. According to the National Institute for Mental Health, almost a third of the U.S. adults will have some type of anxiety disorder in their lifetime. Almost a third. And of course, only a certain amount of those are actually people who seek help. Everybody else just rides it through, or they don't seek help because they think it's a weakness, or you name it. Types of anxiety disorder. There's multiple different types of anxiety disorder. There's general anxiety, which is just kind of you're anxious or worried about numerous different things, not anything one specific. You're worried about pretty much general stuff in your life.
Yeah, generalized anxiety disorder is what I have. So there's no rhyme or reason for it when it happened. I haven't had it in several weeks since my last.
You also have panic attacks, which are actually different than general, but they, like you said, go hand in hand.
I actually have the panic disorder, which we're going to get into. But anyway, did you want to read the whole definitions?
There's agoraphobia, which is the fear of anything that could be constricting or anything that could make you feel severely uncomfortable, either being enclosed into a tight space or out in the whole world. Anything that you're really stressed about that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. There is society or social anxiety disorder, which we can all pretty much figure out which that one was. There's specific phobias, which is like, well, everybody knows that. Claustrophobia, agoraphobia, arachnophobia, those, there's various different types of phobia. And then there's separation anxiety, which usually, I never really attached that to humans. I always attached it to pets, but I guess humans can have social or separation anxiety too. I don't think it's a very common thing, but it's definitely something that people can experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think it happens to me a little bit every time I drive up to Omaha
Yeah, I can see that.
for my biweekly visits up there for work.
So specific phobias are the most common anxiety disorder. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America, or ADAA, estimates that specific phobias affect 19 million adults. So if you think you're alone, you're not, because 19 million adults, that's just astounding. The ADD, according to the ADD, social anxiety disorder affects around 15 million adults, and GAD, or general anxiety disorder, affects about 6.8 million. So there's a lot more people that are suffering from anxiety. And I would assume that because of the COVID pandemic, thank you, and all the recent stuff that's been going on, that it's skyrocketed quite significantly.
Yeah, people ended up being in a place where they had to do a lot of self-reflection, and it was a thing. When I first tried to get my psychiatry appointment, they were booked out for months.
Yeah.
But
And anxiety is more common in females than males.
it sure is. So, you want me to dive in and we can talk about our different variations of it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, all roads seem to lead to me to when I first got sober. So as I've told folks on this episode a couple times, my first couple weeks of sobriety were fantastic. I had a lot of energy. I was sleeping very well. And then about on the third or fourth week, something popped in my head, not literally, but started to develop a ton of emotional responses to things, not in a good way. My anxiety was off the charts.
Plus I think you at that point you could feel them a lot more in depth than before, because we were muting everything with alcohol and marijuana.
Yep. So I don't want to get into all of the different variations of anxiety, but because it's a whole separate discussion. I encourage people to go read a lot about this stuff if you're wanting to know what you're going through. The anxiety that I started to have quickly ballooned into panic attacks. I've had a panic attack so bad I had to call 911. I've told this story before, because I thought I was having a heart attack. Half of my face went numb, so I thought I was having a stroke. It scared the shit out of me. As I started to work through all of this stuff, I had to get put on medication. I also started talk therapy, and what happens is there's a chemical imbalance in our brains that we just can't control sometimes. So I jokingly always, tell people the worst thing we can do to someone that has depression and they say they're depressed is ask them why. It's not a fair question sometimes. What the appropriate response should be is, let me know how I can help you go through your depression. Because when I get depressed, Judy will tell you, I haven't had it in a couple of weeks, almost a month. I feel good. I'm at the sort of apex of my medication management, so it's going really well. But there was times before, and still now, when I wake up with just a little bit of gloom and doom, just a little underlying level of depression
And pessimism.
And in my mind and other people's minds that have this, especially coupled with attention deficit disorder, it's not fun. It's a clown show. It's super noisy in there. It's impossible to dig out of sometimes. I've had depression to where it is dark and gloomy. It's an overwhelming mental and then almost physical feeling. It's bad.
Oh yeah.
So what it is an imbalance of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and a couple of other things. I'm no scientist or doctor. You heard our disclaimer in the beginning there. But, there's got to be a pretty decent balance of those. For some folks, they're just born with the genetic, I don't want to call it mutation, but just a genetic predisposition to have the brain chemistry to be that way.
Scientists have not been able to decipher how two people can come from the same situation and the same background with the same experiences, and one is just fine and the other one has manic depression or depression.
Right.
They haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah. We're going to get into mania versions of this in a bit. I just want to talk about it to get it out there. This episode may be boring for some, but we meant to do this episode on a Sober Mind Rewind, but we had to put our puppy Penny down, so it was a bad day.
Yeah, we couldn't talk about depression because we were stuck right in the middle of it.
Yeah. So the depression, again, overwhelming. I could go on a 3-mile, 5-mile run, and even with a little bit of the endorphin release, I'm still not happy. I've said it before. You could give me $100,000. You could stack the money in front of me, and I would not be happy.
Yeah, there's just there's no enjoying the things that you used to enjoy. There is just, you cannot find joy in anything.
There's no joy.
For anxiety, which was what I go through, there are treatments. You can do the medical treatment. I advise if you want to seek that route, to seek psychotherapy, talk treatment, and talk to a psychiatrist. They're the ones that do the medication. Psychiatrist. I always get those two mixed up. Talk to a psychiatrist, and talk about all the things that you're experiencing, and definitely seek help. If it's getting to the point to where it's destructing your life, it's restricting your life, or it's affecting your work or your social life. There we go. Your social life. If it's affecting those things, definitely go see help. But there's also other things you can do along with the medication, or if these things work and you don't have to use the medication, that's fine too. There is deep breathing exercises you can do, and there is mindfulness meditation you can do. And both of those things I incorporate into my life to help me deal with the anxiety spikes that I have. And they're usually spikes. They come on, there's no rhyme, no reason when they hit. And when they hit, I go from 1 to 60 in that quick. And it's just, it's devastating. It can be debilitating and stop me from doing anything else because the anxiety has just got such a grip and such a hold. But the deep breathing exercises and the mindfulness meditation, I can sit down and do a 15 or 20 minute mindful meditation, guided meditation, and be good for the rest of the day and be able to move past the anxiety episode that I've had. But if it gets to the point to where it's too debilitating, by all means seek help. It will help, definitely.
Okay.
So, manic depression versus regular depression?
Yes. There's several different forms of the mania that people go through. I'm just going to talk about what I've gone through and what Judy has seen. I'm not diagnosed with manic depression, but during the medication roller coaster, there's a lot of trial and error that happens. And I've caught myself in manic episodes a couple times. The depression will come on at an extreme low, and the joy and energy will come on at an extreme high. I know that I'm heading for an extreme low when I have an episode of about 2 days of feeling really good. I've even told Judy, I feel fantastic today. I feel happy. I feel overjoyed. Life is really good. But then I'll wake up 2 days later and it's no bueno. So let me read manic depression versus depression. Manic depression, now called bipolar disorder, are distinct diagnoses but have overlapping symptoms. Manic episodes, a period lasting at least 7 days of high energy, combined with several specific behavior changes. These changes cause dysfunction at work or in a person's social life. So, on New Year's Eve this year, I was at an apex of medication management, and I didn't know that I had to get an increase for, and I had a manic episode. I had so much energy. Judy and Dad were out shopping and doing some other things, and when they came back, I had done this whole wall back behind me, a big majority of it, all those hexagons and everything, because I was just high energy, overjoyed, feeling really good. New Year's Eve came, and then the day after that, I slipped into a really, really deep depression. So, in short, that's the mania portion of it. When I was on an incorrect medication about a year ago, I would have daily spurts of upper mania and early morning upper mania, to where I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and do projects. I was wildly restless, and then coupled on, I couldn't sleep. Coupled on top of, then your brain starts to become sleep deprived, and you just end up in this bad cycle. So that's when it's time to really talk to a psychiatrist and figure out what the heck is going on. I want to thank you for being really patient during all those episodes, because it was tough for me to articulate and figure out what was going on. So luckily I have a psychiatrist that's a good match for me. But the problem with medication management, especially with anxiety and depression, is that when you try to articulate again how you're feeling to the psychiatrist, that's all that they really have to go off of.
Yeah.
So I have found that I have to temper myself and be very cautious with what I'm saying. I got to make sure it's accurate. I started keeping a diary in the beginning, a hourly diary when I was doing medication adjustments, and then a daily diary to write down the episodes that I was going through, so I could have a good recollection of what in the hell my brain was doing, so the psychiatrist would understand. But this is the wormhole and the cycle that people get into, which is unfortunate because it's all trial and error. You know, I was given an SSRI, and then we went on an SNRI and an antipsychotic, and then back to an SDRI, and just all over the place. And it's not like taking an aspirin. It doesn't have an immediate effect. It is, you have an effect within 24 hours, 48 hours, 72, and then you have this long up and down bake-in period for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
For me, I find that I really don't even achieve a good measurable baseline until about 8 weeks in. So it's frustrating as shit, because as time has gone by, this is the last discussion I had with my psychiatrist 2 weeks ago. She always starts, "John, how are you doing?" And she could tell right away there's been times when we had our appointment and I'm just like, "Doctor, I need your help." And I would just start crying. I'm depressed. I'm in a dark, dismal place and I can't get out. And she's like, "Oh shit, son, we got to let's make an adjustment." So, and it sucks. It's trial and error. There is a test you can do, which pulls genetic markers. It costs like $3,000, and I'm not sure which insurance covers it, but it'll basically spit out a report and tell you, hey, these certain classes of drugs, your mind will not tolerate accurately. So that's available out there.
So the manic. So what the main description of mania that the scientists say is that you have these spurts of energy, and lack of sleep and getting projects started, not necessarily finished, but they last for about a good week. And you're in this state for about a good week. That is the manic disorder. That is the bipolar disorder. Now there is another one called hypomania, and that is a smaller, less severe reaction that you have. So you only have it for maybe 3 or 4 days of the high energy, the happiness, the lack of sleep. Sometimes people forget to eat because they're off doing whatever project, or they're just in that high, happy, high energy attitude and level, and they forget to eat, so they just don't eat. Other people obsess about one specific food. So I mean, that's kind of hit or miss, but it's the lack of sleep, the high energy, the doing a whole bunch of projects, not necessarily finishing them, but starting them, and then the crash. So the hypomania is, excuse me, the hypomania is similar, but shorter period, less severe changes, and the changes do not cause trouble in the daily life, and they last for about 4 days. So that's the difference between the manic bipolar. That would be, I think that would be the bipolar 1, bipolar 2, but don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure.
Now, the definitions have changed up a little bit.
Yeah. So,
bipolar 2 is akin to hypomania, which I was diagnosed as.
yeah, that's what I meant. The bipolar 1, bipolar 2 being the manic, and then the hypomania.
Yep.
But the manic episode it's a period of feeling full of energy. You might talk faster than usual, notice your thoughts racing, take on lots of activities, feel like you don't need much sleep. Symptoms are usually severe enough to be noticed by those around you. And you can also feel irritable, but it always comes with a high level of energy. Depression, on the other hand, believe it or not, is one of the most common health conditions affecting approximately 280 million people worldwide. So it is out there. There's a lot of people who are going through depression, and not a lot of people who are seeking help. But depression takes many forms, and no two people are alike. So you may not have the same symptoms as somebody else is having. The best thing to do is to seek advice.
Okay. So going back to the anxiety portions of it, I did want to allude to the earlier stages when I would start to develop the panic disorder. I had it wasn't just a borderline. I would just say it was agoraphobia for a while, remember?
Mm-hmm.
So Judy was getting ready to take a trip out to Southern California to visit Michelle, and I had just come off of a spur of a couple weeks of having mild panic attacks, which is panic disorder. When you have them in succession, quite often it's what would be considered a panic disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of struggling with it. I was having a hard time even going to the grocery store, having a difficult time even going to Home Depot or whatever. I would come back from the store sometimes and tell Judy, like, I'm losing my shit, man. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to not be able to handle society like that. So, yeah, she called Michelle. She talked to me first and said, hey, I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm going to stay here with you. It felt debilitating to have someone have to care for me all of a sudden, but it felt really good, and I felt really loved. I really appreciated it.
Of course. That was a scary, scary episode. The only thing I could think of to do when you were in your panic mode was to just just to gently rub your back and tell you everything was going to be okay and just to breathe.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of to do. I mean, because I couldn't do anything. I could just sit there and watch you go through a panic episode, which is devastating to somebody who you care for.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for the people out there that have these disorders, the problem is that you, again, everyone talks about mental health awareness and mental health is important and blah, blah, blah. But us with mental health issues often don't even talk about it. I've caught myself just being stoic and going through weeks of depression. The last time I had that stretch, I did the wise thing. I stopped myself. I'm like, dude, you have a psychiatrist. Call your psychiatrist. But we just sit there and she's like, oh yeah, I knew that was coming. We need to make an adjustment on your medication. I'm like, shit, you could have told me.
Yeah, a little forewarning would have been great.
Yeah, I think as stoic human beings, we have a predisposition to sit there and just kind of suffer through stuff.
Well, plus there's also that stigma that was placed on people with mental health disorders being weaker than a regular person who doesn't have mental health disorders.
It is.
That stigma on there, I think, has really affected our own social health. I mean, society in general used to think that, anybody who was depressed, postpartum, OCD, they would send them off to send them off to Bedlam, send them off to this insane asylum just for having the blues.
Yeah. That's right. I read that thing of what used to qualify for a commitment into an insane asylum.
Yes. PMS.
Constant masturbation.
Yeah.
Used to get you locked up. Patrick, you'd be in trouble, buddy. Anyway, so back to, it's easier said than done, and we sound like a broken record, but you got to talk to someone when you're going through this stuff.
I wanted to give the signs and symptoms of major depression.
Go for it.
Major depression, at least 2 weeks of severe symptoms of depression. Crying often, having difficulty enjoying activities or situations, feel pessimistic or bleak about the future, find it tough to care about anything, etc., etc., etc. That's the signs and symptoms of major depression, and lasting longer than a couple days.
Yeah, that's I don't know if I've had major depression. I could probably say that I have. There's been weeks on, now that I'm thinking about it, weeks on end to where you and I just couldn't do anything that we enjoyed doing. The simplest things like playing video games, sitting, just zero interest. I don't want it. Going back to the stack of $100,000. Shit you not. Anyone that has depression will tell you that it won't create any joy for you. You can pay some bills, be comfortable, but yeah.
Yeah, I've had major depression a few times, not knowing it. Although I did, at one point, I did get medication, but it was through my primary care physician. So they just, gave me some Prozac and be on your way. And that was when I was going to school full time and working full time. And I would just start crying for no reason, and it was difficult to even do any of my work. It was, I didn't even want to get out of bed. Yeah. All you want to do is sleep. And it's no fun. It is really, really no fun. And you can't snap yourself out of it. You can't go up to somebody and say, hey, cheer up. It's okay. Life will be better. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. No, that does not work for depression.
It does not. So you're not alone. Seek help. I know this hasn't been the most exciting episode, but we wanted to get...
I think it was fun.
Yeah.
Especially the first part.
It was a good story. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go play some Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
You want to wrap this one up?
Let's wrap it up.
Okay. talk to someone, stay healthy,
Be kind to yourself
be kind to yourself,
and be patient with yourself.
be patient to yourself. All right, y'all. See you for the Tuesday night rewind. And then next Saturday, we are having an exciting episode with our good friend Emily. Then the Saturday after that, we're going to take a really deep dive into the drama triangle with Patrick, and our special guest, Michelle, is going to be on here. You guys don't want to miss that one. That's going to be a really good discussion about the drama triangle. Go look it up, get a little precursor to it. It's interesting stuff.
There's some YouTube videos out there. They're great.
Yep. All right, y'all. Have a great weekend. Be well. And we'll see you guys next time.